Hey y'all, we are out here this morning. I guess there's fog over the bay because it's not cloudy. I think that's just fog. So I just have my coffee. I was waiting for my husband to wake up. I didn't want to make a video on the house because he was still asleep. Well, I didn't want to make it in the room because he was still asleep. Yesterday I had an opportunity to watch the Billie Holiday movie. And I really didn't know Billie Holiday's story. I knew who she was. I knew, she was a beautiful woman with a very beautiful voice, but I didn't know her complete story. And if you want to watch the movie, it is on Hulu. I don't like these. The shadow. Let me see if I should sit in this chair. Is this any better? Probably not. But now y'all ain't gonna get to see the view. I think this made it even darker. But you know what? We just gonna go with it. So I didn't know her story, her complete story. So the movie was really good, and I saw that it was produced by Lee Daniels, and I was kind of surprised. He did a really good job on the story. When I see stories like that and think about how black people have struggled, like it was already a struggle for us just being black in the 30s and 40s and 50s and period, because it's still a struggle to be black, was bad. And it was even worse back then. And this woman had a beautiful voice, a beautiful talent. And instead of leaving her alone so that she could sing and, make her a little bit of money, the government wanted to make her life miserable over a song. I just, watching her story just angered me. I really think we're going through a shift. We are going through a shift right now where people are not as complacent about the past, because we've always lived this life of ignore the past. What happened in the past is the past. You don't want to bring that stuff up because it'll make you angry. We're in a shift now where I think people are really getting angry. People are really wanting to show what has happened in the past and how that affects us in modern day. Because when you think about what happened to your grandparents and great-grandparents and how they lived and how they survived, you can't help but be angry. Especially for stuff that didn't have to happen. Like what they did to her, they didn't have to do that. They could have just left this woman alone. And yeah, she did, have some challenges with drugs and alcohol, because she did eventually die of cirrhosis of the liver. But I really feel like if people had left her alone, if she had been able to sing the way she wanted to and tour the way she wanted to without people constantly harassing her and being followed and set up by the FBI and, you know, all of this kind of stuff, I really feel like she would have been okay, because she passed away at 44 years old. That's still young. And then the person that set her up won some type of presidential award. You know, it's just crazy to me. And it's so painful because I feel like I just missed a lot of that stuff. Like, I could have been tangled up in a sense, I was 4 years old when Martin Luther King was assassinated. A lot of you weren't even born when Martin Luther King was assassinated. That's just, you know, a history lesson for you. And a lot of you, you know, your parents didn't sit down and talk to you and tell you where they were when they heard that, you know, Martin Luther King had been assassinated and how they felt. I was alive when Martin Luther King was assassinated. So it really, you know, in the grand scheme of things, like, this wasn't really that long ago. I'm only 56 years old. And of course, we have more rights now. You know, some things are different, but a lot of things still stay the same. They're the same. You know, we haven't progressed that much. We really haven't. And I think we all should be watching movies like that. We should be sitting our kids down and showing them these type of movies to show them, you know, what really happened in our history. You know, make your kids turn off TikTok for an hour and a half and watch a documentary or watch a good movie about our history. You can get away from TikTok or Instagram or whatever for an hour and watch something different, because it really is up to, you know, the parents and grandparents to let these kids, you know, let the next generation understand, you know, what has happened. Like, I'm constantly talking to I'm closest to my granddaughter, so that's why I always, you know, mention her. But all of my grandchildren are mixed. All of them are either Filipino or my grandson is the only one that is mixed with Caucasian. But all the rest of my grandkids are mixed with Filipino. And so I'm constantly talking to them about, especially my granddaughter, about Black history and, you know, what it has been like for me to be Black in this country. And sometimes I look at her and, you know, can see wheels turning, and I'm, you know, wondering if she's wondering, will her experience be the same as mine? And I'm just praying that it won't. You know, I really thought when I was a young kid growing up that by the time I got to this age, this world would be so much different. But in a sense, it's not. You know, I looked at this. I've been on this documentary kick. So I was looking at, I think I shared it to my community tab about this. This woman made a video where I think it was in South Carolina. She visited a slave quarters, you know, like a shack that was built that housed slaves. So I told you guys that my mother was born in 1917 And she has talked about, the house that they lived in when she was a young girl. They actually lived on a plantation in Louisiana that, of course, harvested cotton and tobacco. And, she lived on a farming plantation, basically, her and her family. Well, it was a lot of black families living on this plantation because her dad was a farmer. And she talked about, them having to use newspaper and stuff to try to, patch up the cracks and stuff when it would get cold, and rags, because, they didn't have central heating. They had a wood burning stove. And having to put newspaper in her shoes and, all of that kind of stuff. And when I was little, when I was young, like, I didn't understand, her saying that they walked 3 miles to school. I really thought, like, why she out here exaggerating? Like, you ain't walking no 3 miles to school, because me and my little spoiled princess butt got dropped off at school every day and picked up. And when I did start walking to school with my friends, and the school was only like 3 blocks from our house at the most, I was like, this is so far. Like, why can't you just take me to school? And my mother was like, walk to school with your friends. Your friends are walking to school. But I was like, why can't you just drive me? That's why we have a car. We have a car so you can drive me to school. Like, I was literally crying because I didn't want to walk 3 blocks to school. And then I would tell my mother, well, when school is over, I'm going to be so tired, I'm not going to be able to walk. I can't believe how spoiled I was. When school is over, I'm going to be so tired, I'm not going to be able to walk home. Can you come pick me up? Like, there have been many a times when I would go to the office and be like, can I call my mom to come pick me up? And my mother would be like, why? What's wrong with you? I'm tired. Okay, well, tired your little tail on home, and when you get home, you can take a nap. And they had to walk 3 miles to school. That was the church. And my mother used to say, a country mile. My mama used to always say, there's a difference between a country mile and a city mile. A country mile is real long. And she said we would walk there. We would have our little buckets that we had our lunch in. And since my mother was the oldest child, all of the lunch would be in one bucket for her brother, and her sister. And so she was responsible for carrying the bucket to school. These things need to be passed down to our children. Like, our children need to realize that, like, when I told my granddaughter that we didn't have a microwave growing up, and that my first TV was black and white, it literally blew the roof off of her entire head. How did y'all cook? We had a stove, sweetheart. But how did you see TV if it didn't have any color? She was so confused. These kids have it too easy now. We didn't have cell phones. How did y'all talk? How did you talk to your friends? We had a house phone. We would pick that up. We went to their house. Like, our friends would pull up in front of our house on their bikes. That's how you knew where everybody was, where all the bikes were. And we knew each other's bikes, so we knew who was there. Everybody knew my bike because when I was young, I had the cutest bike in the neighborhood. It was white with the banana seat with the flowers on it. And then I had this white little basket on the front with the flowers, straight 70s. And I had this little horn. So wherever the bikes were, you knew that's where your friends were. We didn't talk to each other on cell phones all day. We talked to each other in person. We made connections with each other. So our kids need to understand, like, what we went through, what our history was like. And not the history that they feed our children in school, in textbooks. Not that history. The real history, the history that they can't get from textbooks. The history of her great-grandmother will be important. The history of her great-great-grandfather, who was a sharecropper, is important. Tell your kids those things. Tell your grandkids, I was alive when Martin Luther King was assassinated. They need to know that that's real. What Cardi B is doing and what Kim Kardashian is doing and what T.I. and Tiny is doing is interesting, but that's just ignorance taking up space in your kids' minds. Your kids need to know what their ancestors did, what talents your ancestors had, who your ancestors were, in case they need to call on them. People always ask me, oh my gosh, how are you that good with plants? My ancestors were sharecroppers. My ancestors grew everything in the ground. Watermelon, cantaloupe, collard greens, beans, potatoes, yams, cotton, tobacco. I come from a long line of sharecroppers. I come from a long line of farmers. That's in my blood. I love plants. I love growing things. It's natural for me. My people are from Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, where they pick cotton, they pick tobacco. My great-grandfather smoked tobacco, dipped snuff, drank whiskey, made whiskey, corn whiskey, wine, all of that. Teach your kids what they did. Don't let your kids believe that their families have never accomplished anything. I'm proud of my cotton picking ancestors. I'm proud that they made a way out of no way. They could take some potatoes and yams and onion and garlic and bell pepper and make a stew. They wasn't gonna starve. My mother said her mama would tell her, go on out there in the yard and get a potato and wring that chicken neck and pluck him and bring him on in here so I can throw him. They had chickens, cows, pigs. They had everything. Right out there in the yard. Go on out there and get you one. She said they would go fishing. If they wanted fish, they would go fishing. Tell your children and grandchildren who their ancestors were so that they can be proud. Don't let your kids look up to these celebrities who, will never do anything for them. Let them be proud of your ancestors, because there's no shame in hard work. I'm proud of them. I love them, and I thank them every day for continuously watching over me and providing me with some of the talents that they had. Even though I'm a Cali girl to my name, I am first generation born here in California. I'm the first grandchild to be born here in California. First generation California. My family are implants from down south. They came here looking for work. I was the first one born here in California. I'm proud of my ancestors. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and I will see you guys later. I love you. Bye.